What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Schreckbein, joined always by my man in the corner, producer Nick Belsky. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers. Art Rooney spoke yesterday. I was there. I was one of maybe a dozen media members. Always honored to be in attendance, and he had a lot to say. He always has a lot to say, but this year it was different. And I'll be very straightforward and honest here. I think a lot of people are calling him for his BS and saying, we've heard this year in and year out, and nothing's changed. Yesterday felt different, and we're going to dive into what the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback plan is, because he laid it out clear as day, plus coaching changes, his message to Mike Tomlin. Well, I believe a splash hire or a splash signing, is right around the corner. And I got a NFL draft conspiracy theory that I am ramping up with and starting to believe in myself. Nick, it's a good one here in the Berg. We're slowly getting the background together, but slowly but surely. How you feeling, my friend?
I'm feeling great. I always love whenever you send me this Rooney press conference, because often throughout the year, I'll sit here and say, listen, I wouldn't have done that, but then again, it's not my money. It's always fun to hear from the guy who, quite literally, it is his money that is being spent on these players and on this organization. So it's a 20 minutes that you listen to and you're like, all right, well, there's obviously some politicking, because every billionaire is going to do some politicking whenever he speaks to the public like that. But it's always interesting to see the reaction to what Art Rooney has to say. So I'm excited to dive into it here and excited to see how people react in the comment section. That's for sure.
That is for sure. I didn't even think about that side of it. Very excited for you guys to hear what you have to say about the whole situation. But I agree. And I think a lot of years, to go back to this year being different, a lot of years I walk in there, I sit down, I take my seat, I prepare my question. Like, I don't think anybody understands. Like, I talk to Mr. Rooney, I don't know, once a week at least. How's it going? How's the family? Blah, blah, blah. How was your Christmas, Thanksgiving, birthday, week 10? Who cares? This is I have one, maybe two, possibly three shots to ask the most important questions that you can ask. I got a one-word answer on one of them. That was great. But I got some good stuff on the others. And in years past, there was the politicking. There was we're looking for a guy to hire here. We don't know where we're going to go. And then 6 hours later, Arthur Smith's on the phone. There are Kenny's our guy. And then by the end of next season, Kenny gets benched. There's a lot of that every single year. This year felt like Art Rooney walked in there and with every question just realized how more and more upset he was about the situation. We're going to start with this one. And before we get any further, got to give a shout out to our boy Russell Wilson, who was named to a Pro Bowl today. Him and Drake May. I mean, does it get any crazier than that? Russell Wilson, Drake May. I'm just saying the NFC is lucky that there's no actual football game, because it could get bad real fast. Shout out to our boy Russell Wilson. I'm actually rocking the shirt right now. Shout out our boy Russell Wilson all day. Let's talk, or let's dive into, start. This is the word I'm looking for. With Art Rooney on why Mike Tomlin is still the guy.
Art, why does Mike remain the right guy for this team?
I think when you look at how many games Mike has won in this league, you don't win that many games if you're not a good coach. And, I know he's frustrated, like we all are, in terms of not being able to take that next step. But, we still feel good about him being our, the leader, and, still think he has the strengths that he always had in terms of, being able to lead a team. So, the other side of the coin is when you look at the fact that we have 6, 7, 8 teams a year that turn their coaches over, it's when you have a good coach, you just try to keep building with them.
So that's why Mike Tomlin isn't going anywhere. But outside of that small message, okay, that small little graph of support, Art Rooney mentioned 10 times maybe that the Pittsburgh Steelers lost 5 games in a row. He used the word disappointment 100 times in this situation. He said he was frustrated. He said everybody else is frustrated. When asked about the fans and everybody that is, for lack of a better word, I know we're talking about Mr. Rooney here, still trying to be respectful, pissed off. Okay. He joked and said his press box is full, which was hilarious. Shout out Art Rooney. But also said that he feels the exact same way. Now, there is going to be changes, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to probably move on from a few coaches. He started his press conference by saying there will be no, what is the word I'm looking for? Like an overhaul. Wholesale changes. Thank you. But then went on to say that even coaches that are under contract could be gone. Terrell Austin and Arthur Smith are staying. He shared his confidence in Arthur Smith, which I liked. I liked his reasoning, and we'll dive into it in a little while when we're talking quarterbacks, but said that there are going to be changes. Then he shared his message about Mike Tomlin. We'll dive into that next.
When you met with Mike after the season, what was the message to him?
Disappointment. We got to really figure out how we get better and what we need to do to get better. So, I think he understands. Look, Mike knows, what the goal is here and what we're shooting for. So, he's as disappointed as I am in the way it finished.
I don't know about you, man, but when he says disappointment, I sat there and went, yep, there it is. That's what we're looking for. That's what you got out of a lot of this was Art Rooney sitting there, and we'll dive into the more like detail of everything that's going on. But I'm just trying to like lay out and give you guys a feel of what it was like to be in the room. That's what it was like. It was a lot of him realizing and having to express that this is not 1 year in a row, 2 years in a row, that we've reached kind of the pinnacle of the Pittsburgh Steelers have lost it and they need to find it. And he is well aware. There is no more denial. There is no more, we need small changes. I mean, he talked about the defensive side of the football worth $140 million. You want to know the one spot that he mentioned as a building block for that team? The linebacking core. That is it. You want to know why? Because TJ Watt's there. That's why. He named the one position that TJ Watt plays and said everywhere else still needs adjustments, still needs to be better. Well, you're paying Minkah Fitzpatrick and you have Joey Porter Jr. on your other side or your backside of this, and they're not good enough. That he didn't get mentioned. The offensive line was the only one on the offensive side of the ball that he said that you could build on. Said that they're not talking to George Pickens yet, and they haven't even started that conversation. Priority one, though, is to make some changes at the coaching staff and to have some turnover. And TA isn't going anywhere. Arthur Smith isn't going anywhere. Do you want to hear the names that I believe are? This is just me speculating. It's just straight guesses. Not diving into anything more than that outside of what we could see change. And that is Pat Meyer. That is potentially Eddie Faulkner. That is quite possibly Zach Azzani, which I hate to say it, but could be. Potentially Aaron Curry. And as crazy as it sounds, potentially Grady Brown. That is everybody in positions that Art Rooney did not praise. And I look at it and say, if you're going for wholesale changes, even though you say no wholesale changes, this is it. Now, there was a tweet that went out that I put out there yesterday that everybody said, oh, dude, he was mild. Everybody's saying this. Everybody's saying that. I said it's going to be a big offseason for the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, you ready? This is what I believe is a big offseason for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're talking quarterbacks being signed and added to this roster, coaches being fired, and then new ones replacing them. You're probably going to go get a new running back. You are literally going to reshape your defense because, again, TJ Watt is the building block and nobody else got mentioned. You're not going to get rid of Minkah Fitzpatrick, but I bet you that you get rid of a boatload of other people. And then you go into the NFL draft and, man, possibilities are endless. In the middle of that, you're probably going to sign a massive wide receiver. Massive, which he definitely hinted at during that press conference as well. Those are the coaches I believe fired. I mean, you listened to the whole thing. I sent it to you immediately. Do you think that there are a few more? What's your thought on what to expect with the coaching staff?
I don't think I think I take him at his word when he says there's not going to be wholesale changes because it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. And until proven otherwise, I think the adjustments are going to be minimal just because that is what they've always done. Even last year, he said he was fed up. He said it's enough of this. He said he's tired of it. They didn't make very many changes, right? They replaced the offensive coordinator that they fired midseason, and they brought in 2 new offensive coaches and Tom Arth and Zach Azzani, and they changed their strength and development staff. Okay. That's not wholesale changes. That's not a lot of changes. That's just kind of a couple of additions. I could see the same thing happening this year. I don't see every position that he didn't say getting replaced. I understand why people could look at it that way. I understand why certain coaches in that list could be on that list for a reason. But I think that if you're going to see anything, it's just going to be 1 or 2 and not 4 or 5 when it comes to changes on the offensive and defensive coaching staffs.
You're saying 1 or 2 total. So you're saying if Pat Meyer goes, that could be it.
That could be it. I think that the Steelers are going to look, especially, I mean, you mentioned Zach Azzani. They talked a lot, and we can get into it, about why Arthur Smith is going to get another chance in Pittsburgh. Why wouldn't you give Zach Azzani another chance at Pittsburgh? He had 1 year with 1 wide receiver. I got 2. Calvin Austin. I don't want to disrespect Calvin Austin, but with 2 wide receivers, what else was he supposed to do with Van Jefferson? Turn him into a superstar? I think that ship has sailed and was sailed many years ago. So I don't think Zach Azzani's on the chopping block. I think if anything, there might be 1 or 2. I'm not calling for people's names. I think you all know the people that everybody's agreeing with right now, but I think it's more so 1 or 2 than 3, 4, or 5 for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
What do you think Arthur Smith, what do you think Art Rooney meant when he said, and I'll pull up the real quote word for word here, but when he said that him and Mike met and they discussed changes, they discussed things that need to change, philosophies, the way they go about things need to change, because I took that as there's a possibility that Art Rooney brought Mike Tomlin in and said, it's time to back off a little bit. Do we think that there's any chance that could have happened? Well, I'll get you the full quote here in a second, but that's my thought on Art saying things will change.
I think on the offensive side of the ball, yes. I think that Art Rooney looked at the last 5 weeks of the season, and that's the reason that's all he could talk about. First and foremost, it's the biggest storyline concerning the Steelers is the fact that they lost 5 in a row, but I think that pertains to the offense. Art Rooney still said on multiple occasions in that interview, in that 22 minutes and change, several times, that he has faith in Mike Tomlin, that he believes in Mike Tomlin. And I think his belief in Tomlin extends to the defense. I think he believes in Tomlin to fix the defense. So I don't think him telling Tomlin that things need to change has anything to do with the defense. Unfortunately, that's my personal opinion. But I think it has everything to do with the offense. I think Art wants to see Arthur have the reins more and be able to kind of call his own shots without Tomlin kind of adjusting everything as he goes.
I 100% agree. 100% agree. It's time for Mike Tomlin, and this is how I interpreted this. It is time for you to take a step back and let the offense play. I think that Art is kind of coming to his own and realizing that this is an offensive league and he has to keep up. I mean, he said it. He said it himself. It's interesting that there are 2 teams with 2 totally different philosophies, and it just shows you in the Super Bowl, and it just shows you that if you stick to your philosophy and you're good at it, you can get there. The Pittsburgh Steelers offense, our philosophy on offense is to run the ball, but it is not just to skate by and barely win games. It is to do good things. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger was here for a long time. I think Art Rooney wants to get back to that in some which way or form. I agree with that. That was my biggest takeaway from this whole thing was when it came to Mike Tomlin was, yeah, there's a lot of confidence, but what else is he going to say? And I understand that the Steelers have confidence in Mike Tomlin. That's not a change for me. But I think the Steelers actually understand that, okay, we've tried the coaching changes. We've tried the player changes. We've tried the quarterback changes. Nothing's working. What do we do next? All right, Mike, stop running the offense. I agree with that. I think that is a big part of this, and we could, very strong word there, see some change on that side of the ball. Then there's this one. The splash signing. When asked about wide receivers, when asked about where the Steelers could add and if they plan to add to that room, he said, quote this, I think we always have to look at opportunities, and if we can add somebody that's going to make a difference for us, we've got to do that. We've never been adverse to doing it, but you have to have sort of the right guy show up at the right time and right place, and hopefully we'll have some opportunities this coming spring. I took that as the Pittsburgh Steelers are running to the bank to get a wide receiver. Now, it's got to be the right wide receiver. They're not going to overpay a boatload of money for somebody, but they might overpay a little bit of money for somebody. I looked at it as the Pittsburgh Steelers will not settle for Van Jefferson in 2025. This is go big or go home, and maybe in a multiple, because George Pickens might not be here. Maybe he is, maybe he's not. I don't know. His Art Rooney kind of floated George is a really good guy, but also said that he's got plenty to work on. And if the owner's pissed at you, it's not good. T. Higgins is my name to watch. He remains my name to watch. He will always be my name to watch. But I'm telling you, when Art speaks, everybody listens, because at the end of the day, Art Rooney makes the call. And I bet you Art Rooney's big board says wide receiver just below coaching changes and the quarterback. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I find a hard time believing anybody can watch this team this entire season, not just the last 5 weeks, and not come away with that same fact. Like, obviously quarterback, because that is the most important position in all of sports for their individual team. Coaching, obviously you need to get that taken care of, mainly because they're kind of behind the 8 ball already on that. Coaches have been finding their spots and have been finding their chairs for the last week and a half, and the Steelers have yet to make a singular move. Wide receiver is far and away their biggest hole. You look at what they had this year. You look at what happened when George Pickens went down and the lack of production that you got out of that room. You look at the lack of production overall, where you were looking at, Brandon Johnson. You were looking at Ben Skoranek. You were looking at Scotty Miller as real solutions on a week-to-week basis. I think everybody's well aware that you cannot do anything in this league if that is your situation at the wide receiver room, no matter who's at quarterback. Because if you bring Justin back and he's the guy, he's not going to be able to do much when nobody can get open. If you draft a young kid and he's supposed to be the guy, he's not going to do much when none of his receivers get open. Very few quarterbacks exist now that can work with underwhelming wide receiver rooms. It's just a very small list, and the Steelers, unfortunately, are not in a position to get one of those 4 or 5 people that exist on this planet right now.
You said they're not. Oh, the quarterback position. Yeah,
the quarterback position. Yeah,
yeah, you're right. I was sitting there. I was like, what? What do you mean? There's nobody that they can go get right now. No, I agree with you. There's almost little excuse to avoid the position. I bet you it's incredibly high on their list. As crazy as this sounds, they have holes to fill on defense. Wide receiver will be the first thing that they say, we are spending big money on it. Doesn't matter. Go get your guy. Go get your trades. Doesn't matter. We need wide receivers. We need to stack up whoever the quarterback is with wide receivers, and Art Rooney is well aware of it. That's the best part about Art Rooney, is Art Rooney gets to sit in the meetings with Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan and everybody else whenever he wants to. But at the end of the day, he sits exactly where we sit and watches the games. And he gets a, why are they doing this? This is the issue perspective, which is much bigger, much better, and sometimes more insightful for a guy who could actually make decisions. I bet you that he saw exactly what you just laid out and exactly what we just said, which brings us to our last point here of Art Rooney, and that is the quarterback position. Here we go.
After the coaching staff is in place, the priority will be the quarterback position for sure. We have some decisions to make there, and I thought both Russ and Justin showed promise in certain stretches during the season, and I think they're both capable of being starters in this league. So we have decisions, and they have decisions too. So,
Art, what is the organization's plan to find that next quarterback? And could Justin or Russ be someone that you could take the next step with?
I think they're both capable quarterbacks, and my preference would be to sign one of them. so that'll be the priority, and I think that will give us the best opportunity to move forward. Obviously, we'll be looking in the draft as well. We've got a whole quarterback room to fill, and so there's jobs open in there, and so I wouldn't be surprised if we look in the draft as well.
What did you see from Justin in those first 6 games that, if you decide to go that way, that gives you confidence he could be?
Obviously, we had a winning record. He handled the situation, I think, as a young quarterback who wants to come in and learn and grow, and I think he did grow, and I think he does have that mindset that he wants to get better. So I think that, that makes you feel like, you want to potentially work with him again in the future.
Art, does age, when it comes to Russ and Justin, there's a 10-year gap. Do you take that into consideration if you're thinking long-term with these guys?
Yeah, I think you have to take that into consideration. That's a factor.
I messed up there at the end, man. I was sitting there. I tried to get that question out 4 times, and then it came out, and I said, yeah, this isn't going to be good. You're not going to give me what I was hoping for. What I was looking for was him to acknowledge that Russ is 10 years older. And, well, if you're thinking future, which the Steelers are, which he mentioned more than once, then why would you not go with Justin Fields, which is the easy answer? The Pittsburgh Steelers have said that priority one, or preference, I should say, is Justin Fields or Russell Wilson. You could debate between the two. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to decide. They're going to make offers. One of these quarterbacks is going to say, cool, we'll come back. Rooney acknowledged that there is almost no chance both of them come back. Why? Because they both believe they're starting quarterbacks, and the Pittsburgh Steelers only have one starting quarterback job. He said that he would prefer it to be a long-term deal-ish, but that he's looking for something to solve the problem. That is it. He wants a quarterback situation where the Pittsburgh Steelers no longer have to search for a quarterback resolution. That sure sounds like Justin Fields, right? Sure sounds like he's the guy that could be long-term, but it doesn't end there. He talked about having a quarterback room that is all one, that it is the same type of quarterback. That's what his reasoning was for Arthur Smith to not be maybe the best offensive coordinator this season. He told me, quote, I think it's hard to manage a quarterback room with quarterbacks with such different styles. I think going into next year, I'd like to see us go into the quarterback room that whoever it is, you have 2 quarterbacks who can run the same system. I look forward to that being something that we can build on and that Arthur can build on in his second year here. I mean, I've said it many times before that I believe Justin Fields and what looked bad for both Arthur Smith and Justin Fields, like not having the craziest spark, was that Arthur Smith had to immediately adjust on the fly to Justin Fields' offense. All summer long, Justin Fields learned Russ's offense, and then Russ came in here and had to completely learn his own offense because he didn't have a summer to actually learn it with the new offensive coordinator. That is all the equation for a disaster. And it turned out to be one. Well, if Justin gets a full summer, you get a full year to develop the offense around him. Sounds like that's the move if Justin wants to come back, which I have no idea if he does, but everybody keeps talking as if we've already made the decision and the Pittsburgh Steelers have signed Justin to a deal. And at this point, I think it would be shocking if it went another way. Not saying that I wouldn't be like, I can never see it happening. I could clearly, what's your level of shock if Russ and or a different quarterback were here in 2025? 1 out of 10.
Level of shock, I'd be probably at a 6, just because
max.
To me, yeah. To me, it's looking like if they don't get one, they're going to get the other. And there is a chance that Justin looks at this and just says, I'm good. Like, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I'll go somewhere else and try to figure it out there because this doesn't look great right now.
No, and I could see it being where the Pittsburgh Steelers completely change course, stun us all, pull a Kenny Pickett and say, we just didn't want Russ to go anywhere. When anybody, we didn't think anybody was going to want Russ. We want to lower his value. That we could see it. We could see it happening. If it's Justin Fields, the Pittsburgh Steelers have a plan. I think that plan works at quarterback, but this is where it gets interesting. You ready for this one? I believe that the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I know everybody's going to call me crazy for this one, but I believe that the Pittsburgh Steelers, if they choose Justin Fields, could go after Jalen Milroe in the first round. I do. I don't think it's 100% guaranteed. I don't think it's 50% guaranteed. And I think there's a much stronger chance that he falls to them than they move up to even consider getting him. But I believe that there's a possibility. Why? Because the Pittsburgh Steelers are not looking at this offseason and saying, we need to fix the defensive line, the cornerback room, the safeties, the running backs, the wide receivers, the offensive line, and the quarterback. They're looking at it and saying, it's been a long time, 5 years since we've had, 4 years, I guess, whatever it is, since we've had a quarterback. In that time span, 3 years, I guess, since they've had a quarterback. In that time span, no quarterback has worked out. The Steelers have sunk further and further. Those questions have gotten louder and louder. And the offense, no matter what you do to it, stinks. Plain and simple. Okay? Justin could be an answer. They believe in Justin Fields. Awesome. But they're not going to take a risk. You want to know why? Because they didn't take a risk last year. They didn't say Kenny Pickett is the guy and he's the future, but we're going to get Russell Wilson because why? Russ probably gives us another opportunity, if not a better one, this year. And then they traded for Justin to do the same exact thing. This year, Justin Fields is the guy. Justin Fields is the guy. Great. We want a quarterback room that is all 100% the same person. Awesome. Who's the most like Justin Fields in the NFL draft? Jalen Milroe, who could probably run a Justin Fields offense without any adjustments. Jalen Milroe. Is it going to be the same? Is it going to be perfect? Is it going to be good? I have no idea. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking why it makes sense. Jalen Milroe. The Pittsburgh Steelers are not willing to miss on a quarterback in the future the next time around. Okay, great. You want to know the best way to do that? Have options. Jalen Milroe. Jerry Dulack's talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers drafting a quarterback in the first round, but that it wouldn't surprise him all that much if they took one in the first. That it would surprise more than the third, but it wouldn't surprise him crazy. He wouldn't fall over, he says. I'm just saying, if it falls to him, it makes sense. Justin Fields, Jalen Milroe, and Skylar Thompson as your quarterbacks. Not the best room, but a room filled with potential and super athletic guys passing the ball. I think it makes sense. I think it fits Art Rooney's plan. And I think the Steelers need for a quarterback. We talked so much quarterback in this conference. So much quarterback. It is the only thing anybody's talking about. I mean, if the possibility is there, or the opportunity arises that the Pittsburgh Steelers can go a different direction and say, hey, we have two quarterbacks. Justin's our guy, but Jalen's going to get an opportunity. Why not? You know, what else are you going to get at the bottom of the first round that you can't get somewhere else? It's all there. And I get it. The Mecca Ibuka, the Ashton Genties, I think all that comes into play. But if the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking at it where it's a couple of defensive linemen, a corner, and Jalen Milroe, maybe they take Jalen Milroe. Maybe that possibility arises. I think it's a real possibility. I promise you I wouldn't be saying any of this if I was pulling it all out of my butt. If I was sitting here saying, this is just something that I thought of today while I was walking around. No. I promise you that it just feels like it's, if it all happens the right way, could go down. Go ahead. Tell me I'm crazy.
Well, you've connected the dots in a way that makes sense, but I'm just hoping you're wrong, because I think drafting Jalen Milroe in the first round would be a mistake. Like, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
It seems like they're going with Justin Fields. Art Rooney said explicitly that he wants the quarterback room to be kind of cut from the same cloth, and Milroe and Fields are cut from the same cloth. Whether you like it or not, they are. One level is a little bit higher, I think, than the other. I think a lot higher than the other, but I understand the dots being connected there. Like I said, though, I'm just hoping you're wrong. I think the Steelers are much better off, even if they bring back Fields. I think they are much better off getting a different type of backup and utilizing that pick on something else that they need, something else that can help them next season. Because right now, utilizing a first-round pick on a backup quarterback for 2025, that gets you nowhere. And they need so many things to get them over the hump next year that wasting your first round pick in terms of next year just makes no sense to me. I see why you've connected the dots, but I don't like it.
What do you what do you feel needs to happen in free agency for the Steelers for that to make some sense?
They need to get the top wide receiver, who we all know is T. Higgins. They need to get one of the top, if not the top defensive lineman, which is probably Javon Hargrave, I would have to imagine right now. And they'd have to go out and get the top cornerback. Like, they would have to spend a lot of money for me to sit there and be like, all right, first round, go out and get Jalen Milroe. Like, they would have to answer almost all of their biggest questions in free agency, which is going to cost a lot of money for me to sit there and say, yeah, let's draft the backup quarterback in 2025 in the first round.
That makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. If they could do 2/3 of those, I think which I think is a real possibility. I think you could leave out corner, go get Dante Jackson, wait till the second round. Get a running back round 3. Jalen Warren's your guy. Which, I mean, this is by no means the perfect team, but I do think it's there. The Steelers do not put faith in unproven quarterbacks. They just don't. They put little bits, but they always have the backup plan. Mitch Trubisky has been through this. Mason Rudolph has been through this. Kenny, first round, got taken 20th. They gave him 1 full year to start, not even experience this. Justin Fields experienced this. I just think it's a possibility that if the Steelers find themselves in a situation where they have the possibility, it could go down. Now, Will Howard, whose name has been floated out quite a bit, was dropped by Dulac today as a name to watch in the second, third round. And I think that's a possibility as well and could make a lot of sense. I'd be much more on board with the second round quarterback than a first. I don't think Jalen Milroe is the answer. I think Justin Fields is, and I will stick with that. But I do think the possibility exists. And I know a lot of people are going to call me crazy, and maybe I am until it happens. And then it's like, whoa, dude. Nobody will remember. I won't remember. It's no big deal. It's no big deal. All right. That's everything on my agenda today. I just talked nonsense and a lot of Art Rooney, which had some real good nuggets, I would say, for 35 minutes. It's time to answer some questions. That's what we do here on All Steelers Talk. I will say this. I'll end this with the Rooney stuff. Okay. I hear what you and everybody else is saying about this is the same conference as last year. This is the same stuff as last year. But I do think that at some point there is a real timeline and almost a breaking point, a tipping point in the journey of this. I don't think it's fire Mike Tomlin. That's not a Steelers thing to do. But I do think in a Steelers way, we are getting closer to, all right, this has gone on long enough. This is over. We broke it. Okay, we have to fix it. It's no more Band-Aids, no more anything. And I don't know if we're there. I don't. And I don't know what those exact changes are. But I do think that we are very close. I do. I think Matt Canada was the first tipping point of this is it. We messed up big time and have to fix it. And I think once you did that once you broke the mold one time, you just let it all, the gates are open. You could do whatever you please. And I think that is cause to believe that we are somewhere near a Pittsburgh Steelers are going to potentially, in their own way, blow it up and start over. And I don't know what that means. I've never seen it happen with Pittsburgh, but I think we're close. I do think we're close. All right. Let's dive into some questions here. We're going to finish the show off the same way we do every single day. We're going to answer all of your questions, so make sure you toss them in the chat. Nick, I'm going to toss it to you. I'm sure, how bad did I get crapped out in the comments today? Bad?
There was a lot. There was a lot of comments today. There's a lot. So I'm not going to say they were all against you, but I will say more than 50%.
I love you guys. It's very appreciated. All right. Let's dive into it. What do we got?
Let's kick things off with Chris. Appreciate you as always. Chris says, guys, I'm not sure trying to win a Super Bowl with this team is even a good idea. The Penguins held on too long, and now they stink. A rebuild is needed.
I don't disagree. I do think that you can rebuild while still being where you are, and then you have to figure out the quarterback situation. I do. I believe the Pittsburgh Steelers have been handed a lottery ticket, and that lottery ticket is Justin Fields. And you look at it and just say, I mean, he's 26 years old, 25, 20, just turning 26, and he's the 11th overall pick in the draft 4 years ago. He's a guy that's had 4 offensive coordinators, has been on 2 teams, has had 3 head coaches, I believe, and was never really given an opportunity to succeed anywhere until the last year of his deal, where they brought in DJ Moore and said, all right, you're good now. This should fix everything. Terrible offensive line, awful head coach, no running game. I mean, it was bad. I think that's a lottery ticket. So I think the rest of it you could fix without a complete rebuild. It's difficult, but you could, because you don't need a top 5 pick to go find a corner. You don't need a top 5 pick to go get some defensive line help. You don't need a top 5 pick to go get a wide receiver or a running back. All those things are fixable without completely blowing it up and stinking. A quarterback you do need a top 5 pick for, unless that guy just got traded to you for a 6th round pick and went 4-2 as a starter last year and looked pretty good by the end of it. Maybe, just maybe it works out. I think it's a lottery ticket. If it works out, awesome. You just hit the lottery. If it doesn't, you throw it away and you try again. That's how I feel.
All right, let's go over to Drew Miller, who wants to know, what are the odds the Steelers draft Matthew Golden, wide receiver out of Texas?
I wouldn't rule it out. I'm interested to see if the Pittsburgh Steelers go to Texas's pro day, or I believe they all. No, they're in the ACC. They don't do, or the SEC. They don't do a pro day. They do individual pro days. I'm interested to see if they end up there. If they do, I would put Golden and Isaiah Bond on the radar. I believe they'd also be there interested in Quinn Ewers just to see what's going on. And it's a little extra to get them there. And if Archie Manning is throwing some passes, I bet you a lot of NFL teams show up just to say, you know what? Let's see what happens. Let's just get a little look at our boy Archie Manning here. I'm interested. I do think it's a possibility for sure.
Let's jump down to Deluxe Skittles. Appreciate you. Deluxe says, should we pick up a cornerback in free agency or wait until the draft? What other positions this offseason is a good pickup?
I would kind of do both at corner. I'm okay with re-signing Dante Jackson. I really am. And using a 1st or 2nd, maybe a 3rd max on a cornerback in the NFL draft. I believe you could find a guy who could be your QB3 and hope that Corey Trice turns into a little bit something more and continues to improve and stays healthy, so that you have 4 guys there. Sign Dante Jackson to a low end 1, maybe a 2-year deal, and then go from there. I think that gives good potential both now and later without really using a 1st round pick. If a guy like Ben Morrison, if a guy like Siobhan Revel, excuse me, he makes me nervous because he's coming off an ACL injury, but he is a stud. So maybe you go there. I think back-to-back knee injury guys is a big red flag, but the Steelers don't avoid those things. If the right guy falls to you in the 1st round, I'd be okay with it. But I think Dante Jackson, a 2nd or 3rd round corner, is the right move, is a good move. Other positions, I mean, wide receiver is going to be available in both the draft and free agency. I'm going defensive tackle all day. I'm going 3 defensive tackles. I need a starting nose tackle and 2 quality backups to replace Isaiah Loudermilk and Dean Lowry. I'm keeping Montravius Adams. I'm bumping Keanu Benton to the outside to make him a 3 technique instead of a nose tackle. And I'm feeling pretty okay about the situation. That would be my 3, and then maybe like RB3 in whoever.
All right, we have 2 from Matthew Torres. Let's kick it off with this one where he says, thoughts on the Steelers letting both Najee and Jalen Warren walk and then signing someone in free agency and drafting a back early in the draft?
I don't think free agency is good enough right now to say Jaylen Warren isn't re-signing. He's super cheap because he's restricted. I think you could get him on another one, maybe a 2-year deal, and give him a little bit of a pay bump, but not really pay him a boatload of money. Whether he's your 1 or your 2, he fits your backfield really well. He adds a bunch of speed. He could do so many things. He's probably the best pass blocking running back in the NFL. And then you use a high draft pick. I think the second round for the NFL draft when it comes to running backs is prime territory right now. It's shown good results in the last couple of years, and this year it looks like the same thing. Why wouldn't you go after a guy like Tre'Davian Henderson or Junkins or Caleb Johnson or Omarion Hampton if he falls to the second round? Any of those guys plus more could be options. I think the second round plus Warren is the way to go.
We have a second one here from Matthew, and then we'll jump down. Says, do you think Jalen Milroe and Will Howard will be seen as first-round picks by the end of the Combine and Pro Days?
Yeah, I do.
Both?
I do. Both of them. Quarterbacks climb. They always climb. You know, I think Jackson Dart can make his way in there as well. You're going to get quarterback needy teams. You're going to get guys and teams who sign Russell Wilson and need to make sure they have a backup who can grow. You need guys like the Tennessee Titans, who I guess that would be a second round pick, but really like it's the same thing, and say, we're going to keep Will Levis. We're going to draft Travis Hunter, but we need a replacement plan. It's got to happen. I think you're going to get a lot of those guys. Yeah, you get teams like the Steelers who say, we got to figure this out, and we're going to take a shot on somebody. Yeah, I do think both of them plus Jackson Dart could all end up as first-round picks.
All right, let's go over to Chris, who says, are the Steelers able to be better than Philly, KC, or Detroit with some free agents and Fields at QB? I don't think so, which is why I say that you need to rebuild.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I don't think you could be better than that. I really don't. But like I said, I think you could rebuild. I agree. Like, I'm not saying what I'm not trying to say, and I apologize if it was taken this way. What I'm not trying to say is that the Pittsburgh Steelers are a Super Bowl team in 2025 just because of Justin Fields. I am by no means saying that. What I'm saying is the Steelers could be winnable teams while still rebuilding and figuring out if they have something special in Justin Fields. Because I'm not ready to say Justin Fields is a 4-2 quarterback or a 10-7 quarterback. Like, I think Justin Fields' upside is Super Bowl. Justin Fields' floor is a really bad quarterback. Like, I think it's all there, and you have no idea what you're going to get out of him. So, and I'm not taking anything in Chicago. I'm just not. You didn't have the quarterback position is one where you need help. Look at Patrick Mahomes. Look at Josh Allen. Like, these guys, look at Lamar Jackson. These guys have the coaching staff around them to make this work in the best possibility or the best way possible. Jared Goff. I mean, the best example you could come up with is Jared Goff. I think it's a possibility, and I think you could stay at 10-7 for a couple of years and figure out and rebuild everything else. I just think that that's a possibility. I'm not saying it's a good one. I think it's a possibility.
Yeah, the one thing I will say is that the flaw I'll poke in Chris's thought process here is, how many times did Ben Roethlisberger have to go through Tom Brady to get to one of his 3 Super Bowls?
Yeah.
None. Sometimes somebody else takes care of the business for you. So that's why you don't rebuild, just because 3 teams are clearly better than you, especially when 2 are in the NFC and only 1 is in the AFC. Now, it is Mahomes. He has 9 straight playoff wins, so it might be a little different, but eventually you'd have to imagine that's turning off.
You would hope so. You would hope so. But yeah, you're spot on. I mean, Philadelphia's a prime example of that.
Let's go over to Ricky. Appreciate you. Says, I hope the plan isn't to make Warren the running back 1. I just don't think he's going to be durable enough to take on a Najee workload.
So by the end of the season, Najee and Jalen were pretty much splitting reps. Like, they're pretty even. Najee would have him by 1 or 2 carries. That would be it. But they were both 14 to 16 reps a game. That's where they sat. And I think that's what you're looking for in the next RB1, RB2, is a pretty much even split. I think that the guy that you draft eventually becomes your RB1, but I think Warren is capable of being a starter and taking on 20 snaps or 20 reps a game, 20 carries a game, and having somebody else come in here to take on 15 to 20.
All right, let's go over to Pittsburgh Hornets, who says, question, it looks like Rooney said he wants Fields, but it seemed like he wanted Mason last year. So why is it different?
That's a great question. It's a great question. I don't know why it's different. But to be very honest with you, I can't really put it into, I can't give you evidence. What I could say is Nick brought up at the beginning of the show that it's a lot of politicking. Why can't I get that word out today?
Politicking.
And politicking. Thank you. I don't know. It's always, every day it's a new word. And this year it didn't feel like that, but last year it did. Last year it felt like Art Rooney came in there, had a lot to say, but didn't want to say anything. This year, I think he was so kind of peed off that he wanted to say real things and said real things and opened up a little bit without opening up too much. I just think that's the difference is, yeah, like Art Rooney said all the same things and he had a lot of emotion last year, but it was just nothing compared to this year. There's nothing compared to this year. And the way he talked about Fields, I mean, everybody knew what Mason was in Pittsburgh, and yeah, he had some fans but nobody was sitting there going, I think it's impossible to get better. I don't think you could get better than Mason Rudolph. Everybody's saying you probably could get better than Mason Rudolph, and you have decisions to make and so on and so forth. This year, it's, can you get better than Russ and Justin? Like, is that a real possibility? I don't think it is. Not right now.
All right, let's go over to Jimmy, who says, do you have a scenario where George Pickens plays another season in the black and gold?
Yeah, definitely. I see George as either getting traded this year or playing the final year of his contract with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think those are the two options that we have in front of us right now, and I could see either of them happening, to be honest. I wouldn't rule out either side. If the Steelers don't get the offer that they want for George Pickens, or they can't find a suitor with the offer that they want for George Pickens, they're not going to trade him. They'll utilize George Pickens and try to win a Super Bowl with him. I'm not saying that they're a Super Bowl team. I'm just saying that's how they'll operate. So yeah, I definitely could see him with one more year with the Pittsburgh Steelers if he doesn't get traded.
Let's go over to Sam, who says, do you think Justin loved it enough here to take a slight pay cut so we can go for playmakers around him?
No, I do not. But that being said, I don't think Justin's market is super high. $20 to $25 million, right around what his fifth-year option would be. I think you could get him a little bit cheaper than that. That's what I would expect Justin to sign. I would look at Justin to sign a 2-year, $50 million deal where most of the money's in year 2 and there's no guarantees past year 1, or like a small guarantee past year 1, just as like a prove-it contract with high upside in the back half for Justin, and then you sign a bigger deal from there. That's what I could see happening, only because Justin's market definitely went up in those 6 games, and the market is going to be dry. So the Steelers are going to look at Justin and say, like in any other year, you're worth $13 million, but there's nobody out there, so you've inflated. I could see a $20 million deal for Justin Fields.
Let's go to Pittsburgh Heather, who says, what about a quarterback room of Justin Fields, Trey Lance, and Jalen Milroe?
I mean, that's yikes, right? That's either really good or really bad. Risky is the right word. That is a bunch of guys that, it could get real bad real fast. Real bad real fast. Or you got 3 first-round quarterbacks, and man, oh man, did it just work out. I don't think you could have that much talent at quarterback if it all works out, but I personally think that's a little too risky.
Let's go to Matthew Torres, who says, what are your thoughts on a receiver room being T. Higgins, a round 1 rookie, Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, and a late round rookie?
So my only pushback on this is you need another veteran. You need another, not a T. Higgins, but like a Christian Kirk. You need somebody else. If I'm going after a first-round rookie, I'm looking at them as wide receiver 3 on the outside, where Calvin Austin is the first slot guy and Roman Wilson's the second slot guy. That's how I look at it. Is you need two guys that are proven on the outside and then a first round rookie where one of the outside guys leaves in a year or in 2 years or whatever, and that guy becomes like the dominant guy. You know, you need a Joey Porter Jr. while you still have Patrick Peterson and Levi Wallace, but make them T. Higgins and Christian Kirk. That's what I foresee for the Steelers. I think besides that, I like this. And outside of a late round rookie, I would go Ben Skoranek.
Let's go to Logan K, who has a wide receiver question. Says, who else is there at wide receiver that's a good fit besides T. Higgins? The Steelers aren't a team that goes and gets the top free agent.
They are not, except for sometimes they are. And you know when they're going to, you know, not when they're definitely going to, but when it's on the radar. Patrick Queen last year, there was a sense. The whole time there was a sense. Dante Jackson's different, but there's those thoughts, you know, when they needed offensive linemen. James Daniels was a big name on that market. Isaac Seumalo was a massive name on that market. The Steelers went big for their offensive line. I think this year it could be wide receiver. Chris Godwin would be my other top name that I think you could sign and be that guy, that he could be wide receiver 1 and you could be okay with it. He would be number 2 on my list for sure. I think it's a pretty steep drop off after that one with like Amari Cooper and potentially, I mean, Devontae Adams would surpass Amari Cooper if he's released. Christian Kirk would surpass Amari Cooper if he's released. But if none of these guys are released, it's like Amari Cooper, Kendrick Bourne, those guys.
Let's go to Vibin with the Dogs, who says, what is a TJ contract extension going to look like?
I could say probably like $32 million a year, $33 million a year, somewhere in that ball range or ballpark. 3-year deal. That's gets him to 33. At that point, you decide if you're going to retire, if you're going to stay. But I think that's what we're looking at here is a 3-year deal for TJ Watt, probably averaging about $30 to $32 million a year.
All
A
right.
lot of guaranteed money.
Oh, well, of course. Of course. Let's go to Awareness and Accountability, who says, will our coaching staff grow this year?
It will not. And for those of you who got to watch or listen to the whole Art Rooney press conference, he was very against growing the coaching staff. He was not about it. He didn't think it was an issue, and he shut it down pretty aggressively. So, I mean, which, you know, if he stood up for his team, can't blame him there. But no, the answer to this is no.
Let's go to Filippo, who says, Noah, could you please comment on the Bills running the same play on 4th and 1? The whole stadium knew what was coming. Yeah. Any similarity to anybody you know?
Yeah, the only difference is that the Bills make that work sometimes. And they made it work. It didn't work, but it did. The whole stadium also knew that it was a first down. So I don't know. That's what I have to say on that one. Sometimes it goes back to the tush push. It goes back to Patrick Mahomes. It goes back to Josh Allen running around and hitting Dalton Kincaid in a pass that should have been completed. Like, when you're a good team, you make those plays and you could do that kind of stuff. When you're a bad team, you look like the Pittsburgh Steelers and it doesn't work out. You could go back to non-4th down plays where the Steelers ran a reverse pass that sucked, and then 4 minutes later in the Detroit Lions game, they ran the same play, and it was the most beautiful thing of all time. So sometimes it's just a matter of, are you good or are you not good? And the Steelers were not good.
Let's go to Sam, who says, I know our line is far from Philly, but look at what a good running back can do to a team who's the most likely running back in the draft that gives us that edge.
Ashton Genty. Ashton Genty's the only guy with Saquon Barkley potential, which if Saquon wins a Super Bowl and we're all hoping for it, I'm sorry. I grew Penn State. I grew up 2 hours from Penn State. It's just Saquon's a household name in the town of Jessup. You got to go Saquon. He's going to have the most historic running back season in NFL history. And the only person in this entire draft that I could even see an ounce of that in is Ashton Genty, that I could say one day he's going to have the most historic season in NFL history. Ashton Genty. Besides that, I think all of these guys could be very good runners, like phenomenal runners. But Ashton Genty's that, Saquon, Nick Chubb. I mean, Todd Gurley, for what Todd Gurley should have been and was at the beginning, Bijan, that kind of running back, the Ashton Genty's the only one.
Let's go to AFL 67, who says, question, Noah, can you explain to me why you think Milroe is an NFL quarterback?
I'm not saying that I believe Jalen Milroe is going to be good in the NFL. I promise I'm not. Like, I'm not sitting around. I wouldn't draft Jalen Milroe. I wouldn't draft Jackson Dart. I probably wouldn't draft Will Howard, although I think he's the safest of the three. I look at this quarterback class and say, go get Tyrod Taylor. You know, go get if Ryan Tannehill could still move a little bit, go get Ryan Tannehill and sign Justin Fields. Like, I'm fully against drafting a quarterback this season. I just think it could happen. Like, it could happen. I think it's a real possibility. Again, I don't support it, but I didn't support a quarterback in the Kenny Pickett draft. I thought they were all terrible too. And turns out that they were. So I'm not about it. I'm not sitting here as a Jalen Milroe supporter. He's just a name to watch in my eyes.
How often do we sit here on this show and say what the Steelers would do and what we would do are two different things? But sometimes we have to talk about what we expect the Steelers to do because that's who they are.
Yeah. If it was me, the whole thing, you want to know what I would do? You want to know if it was me, my biggest change? I would never play 7 yards off the ball on 3rd and 4. That's what that would be the first thing I changed. And, you know, sometimes you just gotta accept that's just not how they operate. So I'm not saying he is. I think he is, but I'm not saying he's going to be good.
You mentioned Jackson Dart. Spurkaside wants to know, Noah and Nick, I've only seen Jackson Dart mentioned once. Why would we not love to get Dart in the 3rd round?
I mean, Jackson Dart in the 3rd round is a very good conversation. Jackson Dart in the 3rd round, Will Howard in the 3rd round. I'd be about both of them. I think that's a quality pick for a good backup with potential. That's great. That's a good move. A 2nd round pick, too high. A 1st round pick, which is where I think he's going to climb into, too high. I like the potential of Jackson Dart. I really do. I think a 3rd round pick would be great. If he falls to the 3rd round, consider him, especially the 3rd round with the 20th pick. Consider him. I don't think he does get that far, though.
Let's finish it off with the last question here. Is it safe to say Warren is better than James Conner is for the Steelers?
No. I mean, I think James Conner is a good running back. I think he's better than Jaylen Warren. Maybe barely, but I do think he's better than Jaylen Warren. But James Conner's extended for the Cardinals, so he's not going to be a free agent. If he was, that would be the name. But he wouldn't come back to Pittsburgh. He was so tired of being in the city of Pittsburgh by the end of it. Like, he's from Pittsburgh. This is it. Like, this is incredible. The story was awesome. But you could tell that he was just at the end of all right, like, I have become my story here, and I want to become a great NFL running back. I want that to be my story. And he got that in Arizona, so I'm happy for him. But to be honest with you, no, I'd go Jaylen Warren over James Conner if I was signing either of them, because Jaylen Warren's younger and is going to come much less wear and tear. But I would say James Conner is a better running back, definitely.
That's a wrap for today, then.
Awesome. With that said, guys, we are heading out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. We will be back tomorrow. Enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.